Welcome everyone to tonight's online panel session on the 8 questions that successful women ask themselves to unlock their deepest desires. I'm Brook, and I'd really love to welcome you to tonight's session. And I know that by the end of tonight, your mind will probably be spinning and hopefully you've had it stretched in ways that you may not have had for a while. And perhaps we're going to create some thinking space for you to really think about what it is that you want. Now, what I do for a living is I work with men and women from all different walks of life, professionals, managing directors of large companies, startups, mompreneurs, and everyone in between. And pretty much every single person that I work with, they ask themselves these 8 questions before they start the process with me. Now, the first time that my mentor, Bob Proctor, asked me these questions, I didn't really have the answers to them. And in fact, it really made me stop and think about what I was creating in my life. Because the reality is that unless we're clear about the kind of results that we want, we're dealing on a hit and miss basis. And so these questions really made me step up and think, wow, I hadn't thought about that before. I mean, I knew I wanted better results. I knew I wanted to transform some things in my life. I knew that perhaps there were some results that I was getting that I didn't want to get anymore, but I didn't necessarily know how to organize it into a process and how to really organize it into a system of thinking that I could take and use this picture to really create a massive quantum leap in my life. Now, when we use those words, massive quantum leap, and they're used perhaps too loosely sometimes, we can roll our eyes and think, oh, well, does that really happen? A very special guest, friends and colleagues on the line with you tonight, and share their story with you and ask them to share their story with you in how they use these questions in the beginning to really create that massive quantum leap. So I'm really looking forward to introducing them to you tonight. I'm going to go into more of an introduction in a minute, but just to get started, we have the wonderful Christine Dempsey, we have Rachel Ron, and we have Kylie Martin-Collins joining us on the line tonight. So thank you so much, ladies, for taking an hour out of your evening from your families to spend with us here this evening. I really appreciate it. So thank you very much. We have an apology from Lynn French. I'd invited another very successful, wonderful woman on the call tonight. Lynn French is the owner and managing director of Gilberton Outback Retreat, a 5-star, beautiful luxury retreat in totally the middle of nowhere in far north Queensland. And Lynn's story really is one of a massive quantum leap. I mean, when we started working together and she started to look at these questions, there was no way known that she knew how to bring her goal into reality. So unfortunately, Lynn has actually had a massive win, and she's on the road tonight in between home, and sends her apologies. But I have said that Lynn and I will get on another call with you all, and we'll do something else together. So just a big apology from Lynn to get started. So let's keep going here tonight, and we're going to get started just by thinking about some of our key lifestyle desires. Now, you might have thought about these before, or maybe this is the first time, but any time that I do an event or I do a talk, there's often some very common themes, no matter who I'm presenting to, no matter who I'm talking to, that people tell me that they want. And chances are you're going to be able to relate to these 3 lifestyle desires as well. So let's have a look here. Can you relate to any of these 3 lifestyle desires? Now, the first one, I want to be free of any financial concerns. A lot of people will say this. Perhaps you're thinking this is, oh, yes, Karen, that would be lovely to be free of any financial concerns. Well, the reality is that you can be, but maybe you haven't thought any more than saying, yes, financial freedom. Doesn't everyone want financial freedom? But the reality is that's probably up there as number 1 for most people. Can you relate to that financial desire? I certainly can relate to that as one of my top desires. The second thing that we've found that most people want, I just come back here, is they want to wake up every day enthused about how they're going to spend their day. You know, there's a lot of studies done on this. About 80% of the population wake up every day and go to a job that they don't love. They surround themselves in an environment doing things that they don't really love. Now, in my opinion, that's not really living. That's just existing. And we were not put on the planet just to exist. So if we really think about it at the core of our lifestyle desires, this is probably pretty high up on the list as well. Is it for you? Can you relate to this? I can certainly relate to this. And I'm very fortunate that I made decisions throughout my life that have led me to doing something that I love, that I bounce out of bed every single day, knowing I'm going to work enthusiastic and upbeat about how I'm about to spend my day. Do you spend your day like this at the moment? Or are there improvements that you want to make? Now, the third thing is that I want to enjoy daily relationships with other people who are creative, upbeat, and enthusiastic about life. And that is pretty high up on the list for most people as well. Most people don't want to surround themselves with negative people or people who bring them down. So these three lifestyle desires, I'm going to guess, are pretty common to most of us. They're certainly common between Rachel, Christine, Kylie, and myself. And given the number of people that I've spoken to over my career, I'm going to pretty much bet my money on it that these three lifestyle desires resonate with you as well. But you know what I discovered is this alone is not enough. It's actually not enough to just have, yes, these are the things that I want. We actually have to be more specific about what it is that we want. And that's where these 8 questions come into play. So in general terms, you're probably going to resonate with those 3 lifestyle desires. But what I'm going to do tonight is take you on a journey, take you on a process where we're going to dive deeper and really look into some of the key parts of you creating a new economy for yourself and getting really specific around that. Now, the reality is that you can create your own economy. And now you may not have ever thought about that before, and it'll be interesting to hear from the ladies on the call tonight. Chances are that they didn't really think about creating their own economy before either. But the reality is that you can. You can really create any kind of life that you choose. And I'm just so grateful and so happy that we've got Kylie, Rachel, and Christine on the line tonight to share with you how they've done exactly this, how they have actually created their own economy. So let me introduce my wonderful panelists joining us on the line tonight. I'm going to get started with Kylie. So Kylie was actually raised on a cattle property, and Kylie's had a very varied background and has multiple sources of income. Is very much an entrepreneur in her own right, and owns a company called Gluten-Free Foods, and is also involved in another company around clean living and a number of other business opportunities. You can read Kylie's bio in the Karen Brook Live Facebook page. We've put a very detailed bio in there, and I encourage you, if what Kylie shares with you tonight resonates with you in any way, then look her up, get in contact with Kylie. So thank you, Kylie, for joining us on the line tonight. It's a pleasure to have you. Secondly, we have Rachel Ron. Hello, Rachel. Rachel is also an entrepreneur. She's created multiple sources of income, but has an interesting background. Her and her husband, Eyal, actually immigrated to Australia from Israel about 11 years ago, was it, Rachel?
Yep, correct.
Yep, 11 years ago, and came to no job in Australia. They both left very high corporate jobs in Israel. Rachel worked for a number of large multinational corporate companies in HR and moved to Australia to create their own economy, to create the kind of life that they really wanted. And more recently, Rachel has really focused in on certain things that she loves doing, and has decided to create multiple sources of income around that and build a body of work, a collective of different things that she's really passionate about, and bring them together to create her own economy and the lifestyle that she wants, both for her, for her boys, and for her whole family. So really looking forward to, Rachel, for you to share more about your desires and how you've unlocked them using this process. And our last guest joining us tonight is the wonderful Christine Dempsey. Christine is Managing Director and Principal Consultant of Amagen Consulting. Now, Christine previously worked in Canberra for the government and has had a number of different roles and backgrounds, particularly has a passion around working with the disadvantaged in the community and around sort of social services and social impact projects. Christine's also a mum of two, and she left a government job and started her own company. And over the last 2.5 years has created a massive quantum leap, like night and day, I think, and you probably agree with me there, Christine, around what life looked like 3 years ago and what life looks like today as far as the business goes, as far as her home life, her family life, her relationships, and absolutely everything. So, so that is our wonderful three ladies. Welcome tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right, fantastic. Well, let's get into it. I'm sure everyone is bursting to know more about your answers to these questions, and in particular, what the questions are. So first of all, just to frame up these 8 questions and why they're really important. So I've already touched on it this evening, but we actually think in pictures. So let's just get our head around that idea for a moment. We think in pictures. So how we create our results and how we create our reality is based on a picture that we hold in our subconscious mind. Now, there's a whole body of work that goes behind that. But if we think in general terms, if we just go back to those 3 lifestyle desires, I want to be free of any financial concerns, I want to wake up daily enthusiastic about how I'm going to spend my day, and I want to surround myself with people who are upbeat and creative and enthusiastic about life, whilst we might say, yes, that's what I want, there's still no picture to work with. And we all need a picture to work with. We need a clear picture in our mind to focus on. And when we do that, it makes everything easier. It makes all of our results proceed in a more orderly manner. And it makes you as the individual feel in control of you, because you know what you want, you know where you're going, and you have a more than well-developed understanding about the lawful working of the mind and how you and you alone create your results. So the power of these questions that we're going to go through tonight is that they bring clarity and they make you think. In fact, for some of you, as you go through these questions, there may be absolutely no clarity there, but the more you sit with them and work through the questions, the more clarity you get and the clearer the picture gets. And the clearer the picture gets, the better everything starts to move, because now you're moving towards something that's clearly defined. So let's get started on the first questions. And what I'm going to do as we go through this is I'm going to ask Kylie, Christine and Rachel to share their reflections on each question. The first time they read it, they thought about it, what came up for them, how did they use it, how have they used it since, and the sort of transformations or shifts that they've made as a result of taking some time to work with each question. So that's how the next part of the session is going to run. I have my wonderful program manager, Megan, on the line, and she is going to be in the chat box answering any questions and also giving you the opportunity to book in for a discovery session, just like these women did after they answered these questions. So she's going to be in the chat box connecting with you and creating conversation there tonight. And at the end of these 8 questions, there will be an opportunity to ask questions. So if you have a question as we're going through these questions tonight, just make a note of it, type it in the question box, but not the chat box, the question box on the control panel, and then I will monitor that towards the end of the call, and we'll ask these wonderful women some questions as they come up for you. So let's get started with the first question, ladies. The first question is, how frequently would you take a holiday if money was a determining factor? So Christine, I'm going to start with you. The first time you looked at this question and thought about this question, I mean, what sort of holidays were you taking back then with your family? I mean, were you taking holidays? Was this question relevant for you? Tell us a little bit more about how this question resonated for you.
I guess I found this a bit of a challenge in itself. We were taking holidays, and we've had some lovely experiences with different holidays we've taken. But I found it very hard to take away the the part about money not being a determining factor. I had a very strong money paradigm, and I couldn't really imagine what that would look like. So I guess it got me thinking. It really got me thinking. Where does that come from in me that I can't even think like that? Past that, the limiting factor of what the money was. So, yeah, that was came up for me with that question.
Yeah, and I remember at the end of last year, you took your family to a holiday overseas. I think you went to Bali for a week. What was the difference on that trip compared to other holidays that you've taken?
I think just feeling comfortable in spending the money, not feeling like we were on a very limited budget and didn't have the ability to do what we wanted to do. We stayed where we wanted to stay. We did what we wanted to do. And since that holiday at the end of last year, we've been on many little trips this year that, again, I haven't had any issues paying for like I would have in the past. And looking at more trips coming up. We're going away in a couple of weeks. Just went away on the weekend last minute because we could. So, yeah, there's been a big lifestyle change in that sense that we're just planning towards big trips that I didn't think would be achievable in the short term.
That's great. Kylie, what about you? How did that question resonate with you the first time you went to answer it?
Well, this one's a pretty hot button for me because I love to travel. That's one of my whys. And not long after I had started, or just before I'd started TIR, I'd just come back from the States. So that had whet my appetite to I guess, find out how I could get away and how the business would manage without me. And I guess coming off the land, holidays weren't a major priority. So I guess that was a paradigm that I had to jump over, I guess. And I wanted to do a big trip for myself each year. And once I really put that in place, I wrote it down. I had made a decision what I wanted to do. The opportunities just keep coming up. So my children are older, so I've just had a weekend away with them where I put that in the calendar. I organised them all to fly in or drive in from wherever they had to get there, and just made it happen. And it was fantastic. I got the place I wanted. I'd visualised it all 6 months beforehand, and it really surprised me. It all just happened the way I wanted to. It was a delight.
That's so great. And tell us, Kylie, so let's say 12 months, even just 12 months ago or 18 months ago, would your attitude towards doing that have been totally different? Like, where was your mindset before about holidays and flying all the children in to have a weekend at the coast?
It was just too hard. I just thought, I can't make this happen. It's just too hard. The money thing, like Christine said, how can I allocate that money? I mean, for me, I had an idea of that particular weekend that I just had I had an idea of what I wanted to spend. And it just so happened that that exact amount of money was on a card left over from another trip. So it just fell into place so beautifully, and I just thought it was proof that, that it can happen. You visualize it, you plan it, and the opportunity, I've just come back from Vietnam, and I have another opportunity to go away in February. So it's just lining up perfectly.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Rachel, what about you? Did this question have any meaning for you the first time you looked at it?
Probably more the fact that I didn't want to need to take a holiday from where I live. So for me, it actually had an opposite effect, as in I want to create a place where I don't need to go on a holiday from. And if I do, then I want to be able to go business class the best way I can possibly go, which before I didn't even entertain my thought, with business class, it wasn't something in my vocabulary at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's mainly the difference that happened to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. All right. So for everyone else listening on the line, think about your answer to that question and take it all on board with how you might want to start reflecting on question 1. Question 2, and this is an interesting question around income and how much has your income increased year by year over the last 5 years? And it's interesting, ladies, when I start to talk to people about this question, often there is a pattern. Did you notice any patterns when you first sat down to answer this question? And what did you notice? What did you observe in terms of your income? Rachel, let's start with you this time.
For me, the main thing that I've noticed is that I had only one income stream. So that wasn't something I wanted to maintain. I also wanted to feel more independent in terms of the income that I bring in, rather than relying on my husband's income as a vehicle to do other things. So for me, it opened my mind into actually why only one, and why thinking employment, and why, who said this is the way to go, and why not doing everything I love doing and create an income from it. So it just widened my reach and awareness to other things. Yeah.
And so what sort of goal did you set? I mean, you talk about you wanted to have more than one source of income. So what sort of goal did you identify out of that, where you said, well, I'm going to go out and do that?
Yeah, so for me, it's 7 streams of income, and at the moment, it's probably 3 that are already established, and every day that passes, there's another opportunity or something that crossed my path, and I'm kind of thinking, oh, okay, that's a possibility. So so that's mainly, I think the focus, if you look at it as a little laser focus, so now the beam is kind of opening, and I can see more widely and broadly, and yes, so that's me. I don't remember what you asked, to be honest. I'm kind of thinking about the streams of income.
I was talking about, so you looked at that question and you were like, well, I only have 1, that's not enough. And so you said you've got a goal of having 7, and you've got about 3 set up with more on the way. So that's great. Kylie, what about you? The first time you looked at this and had to look at your income over 5 years, did you notice any patterns or anything that you were like, oh, okay, that's interesting? Had you thought about this before?
Yeah, so I've always been keen on multiple streams of income and creating multiple streams of income within a business in itself. So so there was 2 different goals there that I was achieving, but I guess the biggest shock was that mental attitude that if you're running a business, you only need to take a minimal wage. And I realised for years I wasn't increasing my wage as the income of my business was increasing. So I was probably finding other ways to spend the money so that I wasn't putting it back into my pocket. So I flipped it all and started to pay myself first before I pay anybody else. And as it increases, the turnover increases, we've made a pact to increase the percentage of our income, you know, and so we're working with some consultants and that to work out what that percentage is to, you know, manage the increase for what we want to achieve. But I also took away, I was probably doing too many different things to try and create too many streams of income. So I really just looked at it all down on paper and I said, well, these are the 2 or 3 things that I want to do right now. And I've solidified that, and now I'm ready to take the next step to take that 4th stream of income. So at the moment I've got 3, and we're just about to launch into the 4th one. And then I'll give myself some time to establish that before I see what's next, because I think you can just have too many on the books at the one time.
Yeah, yeah. And you make a great point. I mean, what's the point in growing your income or growing your revenue streams if you're not also focused on growing the amount that you're going to pay yourself for that time and effort and energy? And that comes back to self-worth and seeing yourself as worthy of more. As you create more and create more abundance and grow, then there's got to be some motivation back there as well. So I think that's fantastic, Kylie, that you became aware of it, and then now you've done something about it, which is the most important thing. So excellent. Christine, what about you? What did you notice when you sat down to do this question around your income?
I remember having a conversation with yourself before I did this question or looked at the questions, and you'd mentioned the fact that we have so many patterns in our life, and that income was one of them. And I remember thinking to myself at that time, oh, no, that's not me. But then when I actually sat down and looked at it, it was, yeah, very, very stable income. Certainly not, it was comfortable. But I was the last 5 years. At that point, I'd been working part-time after having my first baby, and so even with moving up ranks and doing different positions within that time, the average income had remained kind of stable and certainly wasn't anywhere close to where I wanted to be. And I was very much stuck in that idea of one income. That's that, to earn more money, you just had to work harder and to, get higher and earn more. And yeah, it was only when I really sat down and looked at that and started to think about how can I do things differently that I started to think a little bit more broadly. And even in TIR, it's been an evolution for me to let go of those beliefs I had about money and about income. When Karen, you'd remember when we were first talking about my goals have always been financial, but I started, I look back and I think that was so small. I was wanting to make, a couple of $1,000s a month of income of my own, and, in the last month, in July, this month, the business has just turned over its first $100,000. So, that 2 years ago, I just would not have even dreamed of that. It's just been, totally life-changing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you've given me goosebumps, Christine, because it totally is. And when we sit down and look at that, we kind of like, oh my goodness, and that, that relates to self-image and our self-worth, and we're conditioned to go out and earn that amount of money. And it's not until we really stop and think about this. And as you say, you have built a multi-million-dollar self-image now, and that's the direction that you're taking the business, you're taking yourself, you're taking your family. But it didn't used to be like that, did it? It was a very, 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 very different ball game. And to think that, you've done that in less than, 2.5 years, really.
Yeah, so, but even 12 months, it's been, this year has been the defining year. The last 5 years up to 2016, it was all pretty stable. And then end of last year, I just really started to let go of all that stuff I had about income and earning and what I was deserved, what I needed. And in doing that, totally different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so great. I love it. It's so, so good. Fantastic. All right, so let's move on to the next question. So I hope that's got all of you thinking on the call, oh, interesting. Well, if she can do that, I can do that. And you absolutely can. Now, just to clarify, we're using the acronym TIR, and that actually stands for Thinking into Results. And that's the program that I facilitate that Christine and Kylie and Rachel are all referring to that's helped them make this massive quantum leap. So Megan's popped that link in the chat box if you want to book in and learn more about that. So question 3 is around improvement. A very simple question to start with here. Kylie, what were some key improvements that you wanted to make, either personally or in the business, that you were like, we're definitely going to improve this?
I think to improve our whole mindset about the business was to really double it. We really thought, well, doubling it was somewhere that we would be able to take us, and also doubling our income, making our yearly income our monthly income. But I mean, this has changed so much over from when I first spoke to you. Like Christine said, you know, our goals were so small, and now we, you know, I don't freak out by saying, you know, we want a $10 million business. That's what we want, you know, and it rolls off the tongue. We're not shaking when we're saying it, so you can see it. We can pull it right back, and we can plan it out, you know, for what we need to do monthly, and what we need, the things we need to put in place to be able to achieve that goal. So it's a big C-type goal, but we're certainly being able to map out the finances so much clearer, and really look at all the different costings, and do we need this or don't we need this, and really getting a lot of value out of our contractors at the same time, because we've been able to attract people that look after us or give us a great deal, or we're importing, so we've found great freight forwarders, you know. So it's been able to grow and grow with, we've found that some of the suppliers that we've been using for a long time, you know, things haven't worked out and they've fallen away, but another better opportunity has come along. So it's really having faith in the process of the ups and downs. The things that don't look like an opportunity are in fact an opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Christine, what about for you? What were the improvements that you wanted to make, that you identified?
Gosh, at that time I had literally just left my job, and I was sitting there going, what on earth do I do next, and how do I do it? My goal was just trying to work out what on earth to do. I knew I wanted to get a business running. I knew that I wanted it to make a positive difference, but that was the limit of it. And yeah, to go from there to where we are now, where I've got very clearly defined visions of what I want this to become, and it just gets bigger and bigger as we get, you know, further and further towards it. Yeah, it was quite simple when I look back, and I just wanted that confidence just to know to pick up the phone and get myself out there. Whereas now, I just do stuff that I would never dreamed of doing 2 years ago. I just do it with my eyes closed these days. It just comes second nature now. Yeah.
You touched on a really great point there, Christine, around that, is that, you know, you didn't have the plan worked out. You didn't know how. You barely knew what you wanted, but you had some spark inside you that you knew you wanted more. And the improvement was that you were going to move from it. And I think everyone can take something away from that, because, you know, the temptation is to try and get all your ducks in the row before you start and work things out and work out your goal. You don't have to, and you're proof in that. You've just got to know that there's something more for me. And I remember you saying that right at the first time we met. You were like, I just know I'm capable of more. I don't know what that's going to look like or how that's going to play out, but you always had that something there that you knew you wanted more, and that's enough to start.
It really is. It really is. Just that, you know, despite all my self-confidence issues at the time, I still have this little kernel of belief that I could do it. I just needed to know how. And surprise myself.
Yeah, that's great. Rachel, Ron, what improvements did you want to make when you sat down and you thought about life as it was and where you wanted to end up? What did you want to work on?
Well, the first thing that I thought of was that I never sat down and actually thought, what is it that I wanted to improve per se? Because it was always about the sum of money that I wanted coming in, but it's not, money doesn't necessarily improve things if you don't know what it is that you want to improve. So even just looking at the question was kind of a, oh, what do I really want to improve, and setting the goal correctly, and how to. I was quite excited about learning how to set a goal that will actually happen and manifest, because I didn't know how to do that before. So, and definitely I've learned that 100 times over since. But so what I wanted to improve so many things, and it just got me thinking. And before I've really, looking back, I realized that I wasn't thinking before. I was just existing. I was functioning. I was existing. I was just going, kind of, you do what you need to do, but without thinking. Operating. I was operating. That was maybe the word I was looking for. So so that's the change for me, to think what I really want.
We must never confuse mental activity with thinking, hey? Just because there's a lot going up upstairs doesn't mean that it's productive or it's moving us to what we want. So I think, you're all, I resonate so much with each one of you in how you took on that question. The first time that I sat down and I answered it, I knew that I wanted to make things better and do more and have more and give more, but I hadn't really been specific, like to say, okay, in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months, the next 2 years, these are the key improvements that I want to make, because I wasn't thinking critically about it either. Sort of like it's always in the future. Well, yes, that'll improve when that happens, but the reality is it doesn't. And we can find ourselves each year doing this, and that was certainly my experience, even though the intention was there to improve things, nothing concrete really was improving permanently. So I think that question in itself is potentially quite life-changing, because you identify some key things and you're like, right, well, that's what we're doing. And it focuses everything. So, yeah, that's great. All right, well, let's move on to the fourth question. Describe a reoccurring concern or problem that you would like to eliminate. So I'm just going to get started with a little bit of background on this question. Again, we've brought up a few times the word paradigm. And what a paradigm is, it's actually a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. And it's actually a multitude of habits. So it's not just one thing. And what we can find is that we have reoccurring concerns, problems, habits, results in our life that seem to keep coming up. And we may not really understand it. We might kind of think, why is this always happening to me? Or I've noticed that in my life for so long now, I'm done with it and I want to move on. We have paradigms around all sorts of things: time, money, relationships, self-image, all sorts of different things. But often the first insight that we have to some of the paradigms that are maybe not serving us that well can be discovered through this question. So, Rachel, the first time you sort of thought about this question, like, what was it that you noticed that either was a frustration or a concern or something that you just even were like, I'm done with that. Like, that, I don't want that in my life anymore. I want to move on from that. What came up for you with this question?
My tendency to procrastinate was something that really struck with me when I saw it, and also not being as organized as I thought I should be, but it was, again, my intellect telling me all of this. But when I looked into the question more, and as time passed by, it's like there's more to it than that, and there's an underlining issue or paradigm that I really need to shift with this. And it did actually improve many areas. It started from the day-to-day activities, but fitness was a big one. I'm very keen about nutrition and feeding the family healthy and all sorts of things. And it just really impacted every area in our lives. So it was a big, it's actually one of the biggest questions, I think, for me.
And how would you describe it now? So having become aware of that, worked on that paradigm shift, what have you observed as the difference now between back then when you used to procrastinate and be disorganized?
Yeah.
What are some of the key things that you've noticed in yourself shift now?
First of all, it's the my mood, my energy level, completely different. I feel together, not scattered and kind of chasing around my own tail and thinking, oh shit, I need to do this or this. So it's very much. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm headed. Fitness-wise, if you asked me a year ago if I was running, I'm running nearly every day, and I enjoy it. It's almost a meditation for me now, and it's only because I stuck with it, and it was one of my things to stick with the hard things, what was hard, and then I just wouldn't even start it because I thought it's going to be hard, and then I don't want to touch it, and it will be all right. I'll just keep it in the corner there, and one day, and I don't do that anymore. Actually, I find that now if something is really hard, I go for it first. It really taught me, this program, to feel uncomfortable is a comforting, almost there's a comfort in it. So very different.
All right, that's great. Good to hear. That's what we want. We want results. What about you, Christine? What was something that you observed that you wanted to change or eliminate, and how's it now in your life?
For me, it was the stress and the anxiety. I was I was always finding myself in situations where I was working stupid hours, stressed out of my brain, always uptight and anxious, and had gotten to a point when we first met that I just had no confidence. I kind of rationally knew that I had this capability beyond what I was doing, but just didn't have that confidence. So for me, it was being in my head, and letting go of that, and letting go of all the peripheral stuff for and knowing what it was, and leaving it behind. So that was definitely a big thing for me that came up with that question.
And now, Christine, how do you find that now?
Again, I just think I'm a different person. I'm just calmer. I'm just totally different. I just know things are going to be okay. I know things are going to turn out how I want them to turn out, and as Kylie touched on before, even those things that come up where it's a disappointment or it's a letdown or doesn't go the way you think it was going to go, I just know it's okay. I can trust. I've just let go of all that crap. I'm just calmer. I'm happier. It's just a totally different way of being for me.
That's wonderful. Wonderful to hear, Christine. What about you, Kylie? What came up for you, and how's things now?
Well, I think when we first spoke, if you remember, one of the major things was that I wanted to eliminate were these crazy days. Every day seemed to be like I was a mouse on a wheel. I just couldn't breathe. There was so much to do, and I'd tick things off on a list, and there'd be 100 million things on a list. Well, that's totally changed, and that changed really quickly because it probably took 3 or 4 months, but I am determined now, and I go and have a coffee in the sun if it's not a windy day, or I have a lunch break, and I put in a lunch date. I really am working on and still working on it all the time, designing my day, because I have a clear goal of how many days I want to work in a week, and I block my day out, and I say no to a lot of things now. So I go, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to be part of that, or so just so that it doesn't. I can make things flow easily, and so I can make decisions better. I can respond to staff. I can solve problems better. It just flows, and so that was a big one. The next big one is reacting to situations. So like you said to Chris, you know, that's something that is my major thing that I'm working through, and I'm getting so much better at it, is when something happens, how I respond, because that's the only way that I can control it. So I can respond okay, better now to the things that happen. It's how I can manage other people's response now, is because I can start to manage my own, but helping other people manage their own response so that they can move over the issue quicker than, you know, before. So it can take a couple of hours instead of a few days.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important. And I remember the first time we spoke, we got on a discovery call and your energy was frantic, and I could just, you're like this busy bee in the office, like, oh my God, I just got to get through this because I'm so busy. And you're right, like your whole, how you run everything is different. And I love that you brought up, you know, that habitual response to situation has changed. Before you knew you were reacting and it was all consuming, and now you respond and you can help other people to do that. And, you know, one of the things that we really, you know, talk about and learn about throughout the whole thinking into results process is the idea that, you know, when you react, you lose control. The situation has controlled you. When you respond and you choose your response, you're in control. And when you feel in control, that leads to confidence, it leads to calmness, it's direct, and actually the whole situation proceeds in a more orderly manner than with that reactive mindset. So, yeah, I can definitely see the difference in actually a really short period of time that we have been working together, Kylie, and I just know that that's going to continue. So I can't wait to see where you're going to be in another 12 months' time. It's great, isn't it? All right, we better keep moving on here. Let's move on to the next question. So, how much would you have to earn to eliminate all financial concerns in your life? Personally, I had never thought about this question before Bob Proctor asked me. And I want to know had you thought about this question, ladies, or was this something totally new that you just went, oh, I don't know, like, who wants to start with this? Was this for me? I thought about it. What about you?
Yeah, I hadn't even considered it. And I remember when I read that and I actually calculated it up, it just changed the way I thought about it, because it just it focused it. I had a figure that, you know, if I really wanted to overcome the financial freedom kind of issue, that there was this kind of actual figure and it actually, that could actually be achievable if I really tried. So it wasn't just the unknown, you know, floating around in the ether. It suddenly became a figure that I thought, hang on a sec, I can do something with that. So that was a really good question for me. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Kylie, Rachel, what about you?
Probably the same. Oh, sorry,
yeah.
Kylie.
Yeah, no, sorry, Rachel. I'll go. Look, when you first asked me this question, I'd never thought about. Well, I had thought about it, but it's over the last nearly 12 months, it's doubles. I think every 6 months it doubles, because the vision gets bigger as you realise that it can be achievable. You know, it's that getting that yearly income to a monthly income to be out, because the goal is so much bigger. What you want to do and how you want to leave a legacy in the world is so much bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Rachel, what about you?
Yeah, I think before I started the program and saw the question, I only allowed myself to think about stuff that I thought I was capable of achieving, and knew how. This actually prompted me to think, but what if? Wait a minute, but what if I can have more than that? And then when you allow yourself to believe that you are capable of having more, then let's say if the first one was $1 million, then it's like, hang on a minute, million, maybe I want 5. So now, like Kylie, I think with the dessert, the appetite kind of grows and your palate develops, and it's so for me it changes as well, but it's not going backwards, it's only going, there's another zero, there's always another zero.
Yeah. Just another zero, right?
Yeah,
Another zero.
just another zero.
It's interesting. Another take on this, when I am often, I'm doing discovery sessions with clients every single day, people interested in learning about the program that you've all been through. And this is a really interesting question because it's different for everybody, I find. For some people, it might be about mortgages. For others, it could be a small credit card debt of 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40,000 dollars, whatever it is. But that for them at that time is a financial concern. For other people, it might be more the bigger picture. But it's always an interesting question. And what I love about it is, as Christine touched on, it gives you control. We might have never thought about it. B, when we do think about it, we put some context around the financial concern. So if we are aware that we have them, all of a sudden the situation doesn't control us. We're in control of it because we've actually gone, all right, let's put a figure on it. And, that's the question that I'll always go back and prompt in the discovery sessions to say, well, exactly how much is that? What is your mortgage? What is the credit card debt? How much are you earning? And make you think about it, because then you're in control. As Christine said, then I had the figure. And, Christine, you mightn't have made the decision that you were going to eliminate that, but at least you had the figure and you had the control to say, well, if I did want to, this is what it would look like. And it's actually far more reasonable than we think, as you've all touched on. It's just that we've probably never thought in those dimensions before. It would always be something 20 or 30 years' time or 20 years' time, we'll get to that. Now we've kind of brought it into the here and now and said, well, let's use it to grow the business, or let's use it to transform something, or let's use it to build a more positive self-image. So I love what that question does as well. So really powerful one on all accounts there by the sounds of it. All right, let's keep moving on here. Question 6. How would you spend every day if you could truly do what you love to do? The way I wanted to pre-frame this was sometimes, and I know, even in my own personal experience, the idea that you could really do what you love and earn an income from it, or do what you love and really create the life of freedom that you want. And my first experience of this question really was when I decided to go and get my pilot's license, because I love flying and I wanted to be able to do it all the time. And when I started to build into my day aviation, and I built aviation into my business and my talks, my keynotes, it actually started to transform the business as well. It totally improved the bottom line, because I was really living and creating how I wanted to on a day-to-day basis, and that then started to transform everything. So I want to hear from you perhaps first, Christine. When you first looked at this question, had you ever thought about your ideal day before, and are you now living, creating your ideal day now, however far through you are?
I know when I saw the question, it resonated with me, because I'd heard this idea that there were people out there who spent their days doing what they loved doing, and I thought, that's a lucky few who can do that. And so, kind of along with that other earlier question around the improvements I wanted to make, I really had no idea. I looked at it and just went, I don't know what I want, let alone how I would spend every day. And I think it's still something that I'm still working on, in terms of, I'm definitely on that pathway now, and I'm definitely spending my day in a much better way than I ever was. But yeah, I guess it's been a bit of an evolution for me, that one, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And it's probably something that we're all working on all the time. There's always improvements that we could make. So what about you, Kylie? How did that one, what did that question do for you?
It's a real challenge, this one, because, I was in a space of work, and more work. So I block my days out now. So I just use taken it in small steps. So I first of all, I thought, well, I wanted to make sure that I was doing the exercise I needed to do, and like Rachel said before, putting in those health points, the things that I wanted to do around exercise and eating well, and they were, so I worked through my values, what they were, and decided I had to start putting those back in, and also putting in more me time in there. So I certainly started to wake up earlier, which is a challenge for me. I'm not really a morning person. And I started to put my TIR, base everything around that. That was another value, of course. So, yeah, and gradually things started to improve. So I started to listen to audios more, to podcasts, to put more time into reading, to not watch so much TV. So it's an evolution. Like Christine said, you've just got to keep working on it. So as you change your routines and your paradigms about these things, if you just do it one thing at a time, if you try to change too many things, you end up changing nothing. So I just, one thing at a time, and I just write down something else. If I've nailed that, I go, okay, what's the next thing I'm going to do?
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
I have a long goal, and I'm not there yet.
Yeah. And as I say, I haven't thought about it as an evolution, but it is very true. Or like even I think I'm always making sure I'm running my day and creating my days and weeks how I really want. And so there's always improvement. What about you, Rachel, with this question?
For me, it's a lot to do with thinking again, how do I want to spend my days, which prompted me to actually think, because I never thought about it, not intentionally anyway. I tended to just, the day would come and I'll do what I needed to do as it, appears in front of me, whatever task was at hand, I just needed to do it. So it actually made me think about what is it that I really love. Very, very confronting, because I didn't think I loved to do many things. And then as I thought about it, there is a few things that I love doing. So it really opened. At the beginning, it was quite depressing to think, because I didn't know how to think that way. I didn't know how to activate that part of my head, I guess. But the more you do, it's just, oh my God. And now that I can weave it into my day, so, I'm getting there. It's good. It's great.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good to hear. It's really important, that we're creating our days and weeks how we want, because we're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. So everyone needs to remember that.
Amen to that.
All right. Sorry, Rachel. What's that?
Amen to that.
Amen to that. All right, legacy, ladies. What kind of contribution do you dream of making to society? Have you always known the impact that you wanted to have and the legacy that you wanted to leave? Or was this something totally different that you started to think about? Rachel, let's get started with you.
I've always known that there was something. I wasn't quite sure what it was, and some parts of me I did know, but now I totally know what I want to leave behind me, and there's a foundation that's going to happen, and it's very exciting. It makes, for me, the money goal is a secondary goal. It always have been. The foundation was the first one, so it just aligns together, and it makes that's what makes me move forward myself. So
beautiful. Kylie, what about you?
Leaving a legacy, it comes pretty easy. Coming from the land, that's how you're brought up. From one generation to another, you're working towards leaving something, to that next generation. So to your children, it was just I guess the how and what that value was going to be, which was, I guess, a struggle for me. But also to think larger than that. I mean, I've made a list of the companies or the organisations I'd like to give to over the next 5 to 10 years. And I'd love to be able to travel to different parts of the world now and to be able to just, you know, when you see, oh, I'd really love that to give to that cause, you could give a decent amount of money instead of thinking $20 and $50. So that's where I'm at now, is starting to think about, okay, what orphanages could we be part of? What could we do that could really make a difference over and above just your family unit?
Yeah.
That's the exciting part, thinking about all of that part now.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. And reminds me the purpose of money, to keep us comfortable and then to extend our service well beyond our own physical presence. So, you know, when we're creating more, when we're earning more, we have more, but we can also give more. And once we're comfortable, we can give it to other things, other charities, other people, and that's a nice way to contribute because you can. So, what about you, Christine, for this question?
I was fairly similar. I knew that there was something I wanted to do. I knew, you know, all of my jobs and everything I'd ever wanted to be involved in had a community focus, or you know, there was something about trying to give back. But I didn't know what that was. And over the last 2 years, I've really been able to really start to think, yeah, these are these options that I can pursue, and they're so much bigger than I would have ever thought. You know, like Kylie said, having that ability to give more than a $20 donation to something, but also, you know, what can we create? What can we actually do that leaves behind something lasting and something important? And you know, for me, I'm thinking of things like social enterprise and you know, collaborative relationships with non-government organisations here and overseas. So my thinking has just completely expanded beyond being able to give more than $20 for a donation. You know, there's that part of it which is important from a personal financial perspective, but just having the ability now to just think beyond what I ever dreamed was possible, and as I move closer to that, seeing even more as possible. So much potential.
It definitely keeps expanding. It never stops because you just keep seeing you can do more, and that's great. That's growth. That's bringing more of ourselves to the game. So the more of us that we bring to the game, the more everyone else benefits. So you're now thinking in those new dimensions, and you know that's going to come off in all those other things that you want to do. So yeah, really powerful question.
Yeah, I think what you said before was important about having that sense of you need to have enough yourself to be able to give. Again, for me, who always had those issues around money and what I was deserving of, that was something that was really important for me to start to understand, that if I wanted to do all these really important things and make these differences, I did have to go, all right, I need a bigger income. I need to do more and be deserving of that income in order to be able to do those things. And that's okay. I'm not greedy. I'm not a bad person. I want to do something with that. So that was very important for me to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful life lesson there. Wonderful, Christine. Right, next question. So this is an interesting question. This is the last question in the 8 questions. And it was interesting the first time Bob Proctor asked me this question, because it's really about investing in yourself, and it's really about self-worth and self-image, and am I worthy, and am I good enough, and, you know, this idea that investing time and money in yourself to accomplish these things you've identified throughout the previous 7 questions. So, ladies, I want to know from you, what was this like for you? Was it easy to invest not only time but also money in yourself? Did you find it easy? Did you find it challenging? What sort of fears or doubts came up? And how did you move through them? So let's start with you, Christine, because I know that this was a big thing for you back then. What was it like for you?
It was a mixture, I suppose. There was the issue of the money, and how am I going to do this? But also I had gotten to a point where I knew things had to change, and I knew when I met you and we started talking that this was it, and I just had to make it happen. So for me, it was trying to make something happen with what I had, and when I made that decision and I said to myself, no, I'm going to do this hell or high water. I spoke to my husband, who I thought I would face, a lot of challenges with. He'd be going, oh no, we can't do that, we can't do that. And he saw that, what I felt in me, and said, look, we'll make this work. And it wasn't easy, but we made it work. And these days, it wouldn't even be a thought.
Yeah. I think he's pretty happy with some of the changes that you've made.
Yeah.
He's pretty happy with the direction the business is going now.
Yeah. I think he's happy with return on investment. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty good return on investment, I'd say. Kylie, what about you? What was it like for you to kind of go, I'm worthy, I'm going to do this?
Well, I knew about the program of quite a few months before I actually decided to have the conversation with you, and I just was working towards giving myself the time, because I just knew that when I make a decision to do something, that's it. I'm all in. Sometimes it can take a little while to get to that decision, but I knew that the ducks lined up, things that were falling away, that I didn't have those commitments, and I had that space and time to be able to dedicate the time. I knew that I wanted to make straight away at least a minimum of an hour a day towards TIR. And it just felt right. It was the right time. It was the right place. It was, yeah, and and once again, the people around me were supporting it as well. And I've tried a few other programs in my life, and I just knew that, I guess, coming to this point of being presented to make the changes I knew I needed to change, I needed to invest in myself, and I needed to do something consistently. I needed a structure, and they were the questions I was asking you, and I could see that the program was going to give me a long-term solution, a short-term solution, and the ability to consistently make the change in a supported environment. So I needed the structure, I wanted the routine, and I ideally wanted the change.
Yeah. Well, we all want change. That's right. We want you to succeed, we want you to get those results and have those massive quantum leaps. And, from my point of view, everything that we do and create, we're creating that environment for success. And we need that. We've got to be around other people that are thinking in new dimensions, who are getting results, who are moving things along. And even though I head up the program, personally I've been involved in a lot of other personal and professional development opportunities, and I've not even come across something as creative and supportive as what we've created with the Thinking into Results community across Australia, and now we're global as well. So yeah, you're right, it really is that structure, but it still came back to you, going, right, I'm going to do something here. And the first step was you got on that call with me. So, I want to remind everyone tonight that is the first step, whether you think you're ready or not. Book in for that chat, and we can work that out together, as you and I did, Kylie. We had that conversation, we looked at where you're at, all of those things, and then that was the first step. So we've got to be courageous enough to take that first step. Rachel, what about you with this question, investing in yourself?
Yeah, I don't have a problem investing in myself, actually. If anything, I should probably stop. What I've done this time, I've went through a lot of personal development programs before, and to this one, my condition was to bring my husband along. So as long as the two of us do it together, because I always done my personal development on my own, and I found that it was not beneficial, because I come home and then he's not understanding what I'm talking about and why am I so pumped and what's going on. So that was a thing for me. That was the important thing for me this time. So I knew I would invest in me, and I knew it was the right thing, because just the fact that we think in pictures, if it's such a big difference. It's such a massive, massive difference between all the rest of the programs and this one. And I know it sounds simple, but it's not simple. And we learn how to implement it and how to live it, and how to create the right picture and not to be self-sabotaging our own picture. So so I would do it again, and I have done it again. So I'll keep doing it for life, really.
Absolutely. And, Kylie and Christine, I know you both can attest to that as well. Even though, you're well through your 6 months, you're still studying all the time, aren't you? It's just something that you do now. It's a tool, not a program.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a part of life. It's a way of life, really.
It is. Yeah. Definitely is.
It's like
a tool. Don't forget it, but if I don't get to it for some reason, I notice it. So
yeah. It's a toolkit. It's a toolkit that you can always apply.
Yeah, we brush our teeth every day. We have to work on our thoughts, feelings, and actions every day. It's just habits. We just do it. It keeps you grounded. It keeps you focused. It keeps your results proceeding in an orderly manner, and it's a small time investment. It's 20 minutes twice a day. You can do it in the car. You can do it at lunchtime, and it's just that little bit every day that anyone, when there's a return on investment, as in that at the end of it you're going to get what you want with growing your business or creating better relationships or feeling healthier. Everyone's prepared to invest time and money as long as there's a return that they want. And even when we look around our house, there's all these things that we bought or we buy because we want them, not necessarily because we need them. So I think all of those other questions get you to that one sort of part. And this last one is like, okay, well, if I know that the return is going to be A, B, C, and D, am I willing to invest 20 minutes twice a day whenever I can in small 5-10 minute blocks to creating that sort of change? And the chance, and most of us, I certainly would say yes, and you've all said yes, and hopefully for everyone else listening in, that's a pretty good return on investment in terms of what it can give you on the other side of it. But I want to finish up with this quote, because I know that we've all been there, and again, this is something that I remember my mentor Bob Proctor looked me dead in the eye at a training event, and he said, how far you go in this business will be proportionate to your ability to know yourself and handle it. And for so long I thought about that, and more and more it comes up, because as we discover more and more about who we are and what we're really capable of, more is revealed to us. To know ourselves, to really know, oh my goodness, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm meant to be doing. This is my purpose, my calling, my spiritual essence. It's one thing to know it, and we've got to handle it and go, whoa, like that's a pretty big shift to what I'm doing now. And I know that I've had to continually handle it, handle what I was creating and who I'm becoming and what I'm growing into. And I'm so grateful for this whole process that has helped me do that. But I'm interested to get your reflections as we wrap up tonight's call on this quote: how far you go in life will be directly proportionate to your ability to know yourself and handle it. What does that mean for you? Have you been in that situation where you've been like, whoa, okay, this is being revealed, and now I've got to step up to the plate? Christine, what about you? You've gone through some massive, massive quantum leaps just even in the last 3 months.
It's terrifying. It's scary now. Because, you know, yeah, you want all these things, but then when you've actually got to, you know, put it down on paper and say, yep, I'm going to do it, oh, that's a whole other ball game. So it's scary, but it's true. And the more you do understand why you do the things you do, why you live the way you do, and how you can change that, the easier it becomes to handle it. Pretty much every single thing I do in my day, in my life now, if you'd asked me 3 years ago, I would just, no way. There's just no way. There'd be no way I'd be doing this. I would not have the confidence. So many things. So, and as I've learned about myself and understand that fear is normal, that it's not something that's trying to, you know, that I need to take heed of and run off into the shadows, that it's something I need to understand and push through, then that stuff that's so scary becomes easy, and then it's the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But it gets easier as you do it as well, because you know where that's coming from and you know how to overcome it. And that's, yeah, you just keep going.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Absolutely. Upwards and then onwards. What about you, Kylie?
Yeah, this is a big one, because as you're up leveling, it's all very well to say, look, I want to bring in a container a load of oats every month. However, then you've got to start planning for it. Got to start booking money ahead. You've got to play the money market. You've got to, you know, it's really, really challenging. But for me to be able to get to that next step, I've just connected with people who can help me. If I feel as though I've got a gap there, or I feel as though I need some help in an area, I've reached out to people before I start heading down the rabbit hole. I've gone, well, I need to get support to go through that, and it's been great, whether it be a spreadsheet, whether it be, you know, a money trail sheet, or somebody else to plan through it with me. And that's been fantastic. And before, I probably wouldn't have reached out to people for help. But now I don't even hesitate. I go, oh, I need to see the accountant every week, or I need somebody to be coming in every week and having a look at how we pay the bills and how we manage this. So it's about growth, and you got to grow, you got to step up, get the help you need to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, well said, Kylie. Rachel, what about you?
Yeah, getting to know myself. There's a lot that I love, and there's a lot that I think, don't know about that. So it's a never-ending, I think, romance, you know, between me and me, and I'm learning to kind of know the tango dance, and when it goes 2 steps, you know, forward and then 1 back, I remind myself that there will be the 2 step forward. So I have the tools now to tell myself it's all right. After every drop, there's an up, you know, the law of polarity, and all the things that I've learned, and how to respond rather than react. And it's really, if I can give advice to anyone listening, is if you would want this for your children as a tuition, do it for you first, because we invest so much in our kids' education, and we lead by example, and we need to be complete, and the only one that can complete us is us, no one else. And yeah, and it's the most powerful thing I've ever done in terms of self-learning and self-discovering. Yeah, so highly thank you. It's awesome.
Yeah, wonderful. Well said, Rachel. All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Does anyone have any questions for Rachel, Christine, or Kylie on the line this evening that you would like to ask them? Just going to have a look here. It's been very comprehensive, so I appreciate, I hope that you have had a lot of your questions answered tonight, and the questions are the questions. So you've written them down, you've taken some time to make lots of notes, and most importantly, you take that next step and just get on a call and run through these questions with me and what you're thinking about, just like Christine did, just like Rachel did, just like Kylie did. You know, I remember another client, Kelly Bethel, telling me that I never knew one phone call could change me in such an extraordinary way. So you just never know where this is going to take you. And actually this morning I was doing a session with someone, and I said, I'll text message her, and I said, I'll just be 5 minutes, and I got this kind of like, stressed emoticon come back on the call, and I'm like, what are you worried about? I'm not here to steal your credit card. I said, I'm here to help you. And she was like, and she laughed and carried on. But sometimes it can be a little scary, you know, taking that first step. But you know, it's a phenomenal experience, and the first step is really to just start that conversation and for me to find out a little bit more about where you're at and what you're looking for, and to take you through how and if this is a great fit for you to help you accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. So I really encourage you to take some time and just click the link that Megan shared in the chat box and book in for a 30-minute chat, and we'll go through these questions as a starting point and really get a feel for where you're at and what you want to do. So I want to thank you all so much for coming on the line, and for Rachel, Christine and Kylie for taking time out of your evening to spend with us tonight. I know that this is such a valuable lived experience of not only the questions but of putting it into action. And we can know this stuff and we can read about it, but it's really the results that count. It's the action that goes with it, and it's the results that count. And, you know, you're all testament to that idea that we can create our own economy and we can create the results that we really want. Yes, we might have to shift some things around our thoughts, feelings and actions and work on some things that might scare us, but it's worth it at the end of the day, because you're really creating how you want to create. So a final word from you, Christine, to share with everybody before we wrap up this evening.
Do it. Get involved.
I promise everyone that was not planted. I didn't say that.
I promise. No, I'm serious. Just let go of the all of the reasons why you can't, and trust your gut. Believe in yourself and invest in yourself. And you know, I challenge you to come back in 12 months' time and tell me that things are exactly the same as they were today, because they won't be. So. Yeah, that's my words of wisdom.
There you go. I love it. Great point, Christine. Kylie, what about you?
I say it too, Christine. Just do it. If you know in your heart that you need to do something different, your life needs to change, your environment needs to change, the way you think, respond needs to change, then this program will give you everything that you want. I promise you. It's just fantastic. So if you're somebody who wants those changes, just go ahead and make the call, because you know, it's like it's only 14 weeks till Christmas, and we have to get out on the beach in our togs. You've got to make the decision today to look great when you get out onto that beach. So the longer you leave it, the closer it's getting. So just make the decision and do it.
Awesome. Well said, Kylie. Rachel, what about you? Any final words to share with everybody?
I think you'll be giving yourself a gift that you'll never regret giving yourself, and it's the gift that keeps on giving. Really, it is, because every time that you think, oh, I went through this lesson, and you go through it again and you discover something new, and it applies to a new stage that you are in your life, and I think every person needs to have it. Part of my mission is to make sure that every child actually learns it, because I think we'll have such a kinder, more compassionate, lovely world. And you'll be a part of something bigger than yourself. And and there's a tribe of people that's expanding, and we're a lovely tribe, and come join us. We're lovely. We're really awesome.
We really are.
We really are.
No, look, it's true. You know, when you start getting involved in thinking like this and thinking from that creative plane rather than the competitive plane, where, you know, the spirit's always for expansion, fuller expression. There's always more to bring to the game. There's always more to share. And not only are you thinking like that and creating that in your own families, businesses, communities, but then you've got that expanded through our thinking into results community. I mean, the ripple effect that is having on towns, on cities, on regional economies, on all sorts of things. So, you know, it is a beautiful, beautiful environment to be a part of. If you're going to change and you're going to go through some of those scary terror barrier moments, you want to be a part of this environment to do it in, because it's supportive, it's creative, and we're all here to help you do that. And we want success for you. I want success for you. I know that, you know, Rachel, Kylie, Christine, they're just scratching the surface of the kind of people that you'll meet and become not only friends with, but potentially do business with, mastermind with. You've got, you know, the best thinkers that you could have as part of the Thinking into Results community. So on that note, I want to thank you all so much for joining me tonight. Megan shared the link in the chat box. If you want to go ahead and book in for a chat with me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love talking to you, Christine, Kylie, and Rachel. It's such a pleasure. It really feels like family more than anything else now. So, yeah, so I just want to thank you all so much. In fact, one question that's just come up here, which actually is a really important question, so I'm going to throw it out to you. The question is, how do each of you feel this has changed your children?
I think my children are happier because I'm happier.
Yeah.
That's the short answer.
Yeah.
For my kids, at the beginning, they looked at me and said, why are you asking us all these questions? And why do you want us? Because I've made them start visionarying and thinking, what do they want and what does it look like? And so now I think my kids are more, it brought out more creative sense in them. They're more, I think, critical thinkers a bit. It just changed, it's tweaked the conversation around the dinner table. It's more, there's a lot more purpose in everything that we do, I think, as a family. And the children are definitely more positive in everything that they do.
Yeah, well,
for me, my children are a bit older, so I've only got one left. But what it has done for when you have older children is it's given you the ability to mentor them in a different way. So it's really improved our relationship, because my children, my older two, are quite creative. They're in difficult jobs where they're, you know, they've got to really, you know, I've been able to say to them, you got to visualize what you want. Don't forget the goal. Write it down. You know, I've really been able to mentor them and give them solid advice, instead of they ring up and, you know, you feel your heart pounding when they're telling you that they, you know, something's not worked out for them. I don't have to respond and buy into the story. I can give them something to walk away with and to focus on. So, yeah, that's I guess the great thing, and not to stress about the future so much. So yeah, that's the advice I can give for people who've got older children. It's just it's a better relationship and a better way of mentoring as one adult to another.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great, Kylie. Great insight there. Thanks for sharing. Any other questions before we wrap up this evening? Great question. Okay. All right, everyone. Well, we will wrap up there. I just want to have a final thank you so much to Christine, to Kylie, to Rachel, for taking the time again to share your stories and the real life results that you've created by becoming aware of your answers to these questions, and how it really did unlock the desires that you had within. And not only did it unlock it, but it then gave you the opportunity to do something with it, which is what we all want. We bring more of ourselves to the surface, everyone wins. Our communities, our families, ourselves, absolutely everybody. So I just want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. So thank you, ladies.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
And thank you to everyone that is tuned in tonight to be with us and to think about these questions. I can't wait to meet every single one of you and learn more about your deepest desires and the things that you want to create for yourself and your family and your community. So I really look forward to making that connection. But for now, I will say good night. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we'll talk again very, very soon. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.